So for me, what we want to communicate if we're writing an article ourselves, we need to push our own story, our own narrative. And one of them is that we started off as a ratepayers association, trying to get to correct the service non-delivery, the issues of service delivery in our areas.
By building a relationship with the city to help them, that's how we positioned ourselves.
Yeah, so we were trying to sort out things like lights, sewer, roads, infrastructure, those kind of things. And then we also started having to deal with things about billing, right?
Yeah.
And when it came to the point of the budget process, by then we had substantial issues around administration of the city's affairs. From our experience, from seeing how we know there is a budget for all this maintenance and it's not being spent properly. So then we decided to intervene on the budgeting process. To have our say, as we are legally entitled to comment on the proposed budget. We were stonewalled all the way. In the tens of meetings that we've attended and had with the city, either publicly or one-on-one, we've been stonewalled all the way. They've not listened to our issues.
Particularly when we approached them based on the Auditor General's findings. That happened last year. So before this new Auditor General report was published at the beginning of 2023, the WRA already started scrutinizing the financials of what the auditor, as reported by the Auditor General, and that was in 2021 already.
Right.
So our first letter that went out to the city about the AG report was in November 2022. And we didn't get a response to that. So essentially, our objections to the new tariff increases and the budget that was proposed to be adopted in May were completely stonewalled. They were all suggestions based on the findings of the Auditor General, to which the CFO replied that it was too late for us to intervene. Meanwhile, which is nonsense.
So this is a recurring theme.
Yeah.
That the administration of the city just does not want to hear what residents have to say.
Across the board.
And this practice of not listening includes all the political parties.
Yeah, ward councillors haven't been able to help anybody in their areas.
This is a recurring thing that people are trying to get the issues addressed by the ward councillors and the
by appropriate channels.
By the channels, and they get stonewalled. They get all sorts of what's the word? All sorts of
intimidation.
Yeah, obfuscation. You know what I mean?
The city makes it very difficult for us to take up any kind of query with them.
They do not listen.
They don't listen. They make it. I think it's a deliberate act of dismissiveness. If you take a drive to any Caesar Colour Centre in eThekwini right now, you'll see queues out the door, and those queues aren't moving because the people inside aren't doing their jobs, not because they are understaffed. But the only line that moves at the Caesar Colour office is the payment line. People that still physically go in to pay their bills, those tellers work. But everybody in the back office that is supposed to deal with queries and billing inquiries, customer service, it's non-existent.
Yes. So this is a central theme, that the administration does not listen. It's not a caring administration, contrary to their claim and their logos and mottos and public materials.
It's the direct opposite.
Across the communities, across the demographic of the city, this administration does not listen.
Okay.
And we've tried for years and years and years to get them in various ways to get them to listen, and now we've reached the end of our tether.
So what does that mean, the end of our tether? Like, does it mean that we want to self-administer the city? Does it mean...
We want to be involved in the administration. We want to co-administer the city. That's why we're asking for that oversight board. Because we need to open new structures in the city as it is allowed in the legislation. for greater participation of the citizenry.
So a question though, are those new structures that we want to open, or is it just structures that we'd like to see implemented as per their existing legislation and their mandates and the Systems Act and all of that?
It's probably both. We probably have to deepen things like the public accounts committees, the audits committees. But, I mean, we see over and over again, they come with reports about the municipal management must do that, there must be disciplinaries here, and these are just sort of like soundbite catchphrases that are thrown in that have placated us in the past. We've took them at their word. We took them, at their bona fides in the past. And again, even this year, again in recent council meetings, again you had public accounts committee saying they had a whole shopping list of the municipal manager must report monthly on this, the municipal manager must report quarterly
Platitudes.
on that. Platitudes. We've heard it all before.
But nothing gets done.
So
the structures exist. They understand what those structures are, but they don't abide by them.
Yes. So we want to get involved in those existing structures to bring, a greater sense of transparency and accountability into the way those structures are working. And if we need to form new oversight, structures, then we must. And if bylaws or regulations or policy of the metro need to change, then they must change. But we cannot continue in this way. The economy of the city is crashing.
Agreed.
And it'll be madness to think that there's a self-correction that's happening. There is no self-correction that's happening. And so instead of the city taking us at our bona fides as established residents associations, ratepayers associations, and whatever, they've chosen to now label us as a mob and all sorts of nasty things in the press. And then they still want to come to sessions and be smiling at us and talking nicely to us when you've tarred and feathered us already. It is
a little insulting.
It is insulting, and they are requiring us to act stupid and dumb, and we are not prepared to do that anymore. We've allowed it too long.
Agreed.
We've been too apathetic, we've been too complacent, and this is where we have got ourselves into this mess.
So essentially this is now us actually standing up and taking responsibility for our own guilt in enabling the city to overreach. By virtue of our silence, by virtue of the nuisance factor that they've created in terms of how difficult it is to lodge a complaint against the city, we've been docile.
Yeah, I've been.
And it is therefore our responsibility to turn that around. It's not the city's fault that we didn't wake up before now.
Yeah, they took the gap.
They took the gap, we enabled it, and now we're saying, okay, you know what, no more, it's enough. It's almost as if the ratepayer bodies have stepped into a parental role, and we're now looking to discipline our children. And we're saying, right, guys, you were caught with your hands in the cookie jar, you're grounded. Let's remedy this. We don't want to throw you away. We're not giving you up for adoption.
It's tough love.
It's just a case of, these are the rules. These are the rules, and they're there for a reason. Everybody needs these rules. So you need to follow them, because if you don't follow them, nobody else is going to follow them.
So this is essentially what the issues we're facing is the irrationality on the part of the city in the way it's been managing the affairs.
Or mismanaging them.
And mismanaging them more correctly. We cannot continue on that way. It would be hard to imagine investors looking at Tigrini and saying, this is a safe place for me to invest our euros or yuan or
whatever
dollars
it is.
Or whatever it is. I would not imagine a due diligence being done, a proper due diligence being done on the city administration, and it coming out to say, yes, let's invest, let's build a factory, and let's build a hotel, let's build whatever it is. And this is the point where we are at now, is that the city, because of a revenue crunch, is turning the screw on the private resident. So the city has actually become more of an extortion racket than anything else.
Well, I think what a lot of ratepayers are up in arms about is that it's very clear that the city is losing more and more and more of its rate-paying base.
Yes.
People are selling and fleeing, either via semigration or full-blown immigration.
Yes.
They are getting out of the city,
Yes.
or they have decided to organize and
Yes.
get off the grid and
Yes.
stop being as dependent on the city,
Yes.
which leaves the diminishing rate space
Yes.
responsible for all the shortfalls.
Yes.
Now,
That's
the
not
narrative,
sustainable. That's
it's
not a
not
sustainable
sustainable
game.
because essentially we have now proven that by virtue of the budget and it's the wasteful expenditure that we've uncovered in the last 5 years,
Yes.
if the city is capable of losing unaccounted for
Yes.
50 billion rand in 5 years, then surely whatever we are paying right now is enough
Yes.
to cover and cross-subsidize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because essentially we need to acknowledge that yes, we do need to redress the imbalances of the
Yes,
past.
absolutely.
And none of us are contesting that. At least the
Absolutely.
WRA isn't, and nor is the
Absolutely.
ERPM. What we are contesting is the fact that we are paying exorbitant rates.
Yes.
Our rates are
Yes.
double what Cape Town's rates are.
Yes.
And our neighbors and the informal settlers and all of these areas around us are
They're
suffering.
not getting the investment.
They're not. And it's getting paid for.
Yeah.
We're paying
Yeah.
for their
It's
dignity,
not
for
getting redistributed.
and it's not being implemented.
Yes.
So what we're saying is, okay, cool, redress the imbalances of the past, but
Yes.
show us where you've done that.
Yes.
Are you picking up the trash in Umlazi?
Yes.
Is there water in Richmond Farm,
Yes.
in those taps?
Yes.
Because we're supposed to be paying for it, so where's that money going?
Yes. So this is the thing. It's not a us versus them.
No, this
There's
fight is
only
as
one
much for the
us.
poor as it is for
There's
us.
only one us here.
Yeah,
We are
Civil society.
We are a civil society as ratepayers. We are
or consumers across the board. I
we
mean,
are only too willing to pay a fair bill for our consumption, and we expect that revenue to be plowed into the areas, into the communities that deserve the resources.
yeah,
And that's not what's being going on.
It's not
and the
happening.
city keeps playing this card, this manipulation.
well, it's
And this
divisive.
is what has silenced us in the past, because we've been afraid of being stereotyped
Yeah.
as middle class, as minority groups that are only interests have selfish interests. And this is not true.
No, it's not.
Many of us are active in all sorts of social justice projects. And our biggest social justice project is the city finances, which we contribute, not even just in terms of our rates, but in terms of our income tax, our business tax, all goes to the coffers.
Yeah.
If it goes directly to the city, it goes to the national, and it gets redistributed back to the city from the national. And it's getting wasted. This is the evidence, is that we've got wastage. You know what I mean? On a what kind of scale?
It's
would you
monumental.
It's monumental.
It's monumental waste. It's not even just skimming off the top. It's blatant pilfering
Yes.
of public funds.
Yes.
And so says the AG, not
Yes,
us. This
yes.
isn't an accusation coming out of nowhere. This is coming from an independent report
Yes,
published
Yes.
with findings and recommendations that have been ignored.
So we've got irrationality in terms of how the city is managing the affairs. There is illegality with regards to the way the city manages our affairs in terms of the way it establishes our consumption, the way it bills us. It's all out of line with the legislation.
Agreed.
Years, months and months and months of estimated bills.
Is fraud.
It's fraudulent. It's contrary to the legislation.
Agreed.
That we all can read it in black and white.
And yet they continue.
And yet we must just continue to accept this. We have now become complicit
Absolutely.
in this illegality, and it must stop. And this is what we are. This is what our campaign is about.
So effectively, I mean, if we were to minimize or kind of try and reduce it down to one sentence as to why we're withholding our rates from the city, we have opted out of aiding and abetting the criminality.
The mismanagement.
And the mismanagement.
Yes.
Because that's what we're doing. It's basically like being pulled over for a speeding ticket and opting for the bribe. It's a contribution to corruption.
Yes.
It's perpetuating.
That's how we feel.
Yeah. So it's just perpetuating the corruption. And now that we're standing up against it and saying, no, it's enough. We don't trust you anymore.
It's a vote of no-confidence.
It's an absolute vote of no-confidence.
It's a call to the province and to the national government to hear that we are serious about this.
And to the rest of civil society, you know.
Yeah.
I think we all became even more docile over the COVID period. We all just wanted to do the right thing, and we got locked down, and we got locked in, and we got isolated, and we all just wanted to serve our neighbor and do the right thing, and we complied, and all it brought us was a normalization of this space of apathy. Yeah. And we're waking up now, and apathy.
Yeah.
We're waking up now, and I think it's time.
So that's our narrative.
That's our narrative.